Hello, everyone, and welcome to this online training on the Échelle francophone d'appréciation du rendement, an achievement test for students grades 1 to 10. My name is Serge Lacroix. I'm the author of the EFAR. I'm also an associate professor at UBC. I've been teaching there for about 11 years now, and I'm also a psychologist in private practice. What we will do today, starting with the asynchronous phase, is discuss the reason for the training. We'll talk about the test itself, talk about the subtests, talk about the material, and also the principles behind the test administration. For the second part that will be live, we will practice all the different subtests, understand the basic rules around establishing the basal, finding the ceiling, applying the reverse rule. All of this will be done as we practice the different subtests being online. In the second part, or the second day, we will look at some questions. We will talk about how to score the writing subtest, 2 specific writing subtests, and discuss again the important rules such as the reverse rules, establishing the basal, and the ceiling, because these are key elements of the test administration. In the second part of the second day, which will also be asynchronous, we'll talk about the EFAR computer scoring program, look at the different scores that you might get, and we'll also try to see how we can interpret those different scores. So why take the training on EFAR? Well, first of all, simply to know how to administer that test and to be able to score it, because it is the kind of test you'll be able to use to screen, to get a sense of someone's functioning, and you'll be able to use this training to administer the test. It will also become a tool for you to use when you want to get a better sense of an overall functioning of students when it comes to reading, writing, and math. So what is the EFAR? Well, the EFAR is a measure of reading skills, writing skills, and math skills for students grades 1 to 10. It is administered in French, and it was put together for students that are studying in French but a linguistic minority setting, meaning French outside of Quebec. It is used both in Francophone programs and also in French immersion programs across Canada. A key component, and you will see I will insist a lot on that aspect, is the fact that the EFAR is a standardized test, which means that it is very important to respect standardization. The key comment I always make is it is very important to ask the question exactly how they are presented in the book. It is very important that you always administer the subtest in a certain order, always respecting the rules that are behind the standardization. Breaking standardization implies that your results might not be valid. It might be that one individual is asking questions a certain way, then someone else asking questions a different way, and so on. And all of a sudden, by breaking standardization, we can no longer compare the students with the norm. So very important to respect the fact that it is a standardized test. The standardization implies that there are a number of rules around test administration. I kind of gave you the most important one, which is the fact that you do have to ask the questions exactly as they are presented in the book. And it's very easy to find. It's highlighted, it's bolded, it's in blue. Always with each subtest, you have what it takes to transition from one subtest to the other. You have all the directions that you need to understand what you should be asking and to understand why you're kind of going in a specific order. By respecting that standardization, it also avoids, like I said, creating a test that would be different from one test administrator to the other, from one examiner to the other. Meaning that we're no longer sure if what we're measuring is exactly what was intended, because we are either providing too much information by a longer question, or maybe not enough information, because we might say, oh, it's a math subtest, you just do these problems. and the student may not know exactly what is expected. So very important to respect standardization. Breaking standardization, as I mentioned, may mean that the scores are no longer valid. You may have to, like it means you have spoiled the subtest. So you may have to remove that subtest from your calculation of a specific domain. It may bias the assessment also, one way or the other. Sometimes, again, providing more information may be more harmful because it may lead to cognitive overload. It is certainly something we see with children that are struggling with language. More information means more language, meaning it's harder for them to process, might not be helpful, even though we think we are helping them. So very important to respect standardization. So who does the EFAR? Well, first of all, the students that are struggling, most of the time we will use the EFAR to find out what are these specific areas of difficulties. Is the child struggling with reading comprehension, or is it mostly decoding? Is it math operations or math reasoning, and so on? So we want to decipher between these specific areas within a domain or just an overall profile. Sometimes we will use the EFAR because we're dealing with the gifted students and we want to know what are those areas of giftedness. Is the child really stronger than the majority of students, meaning is he or she obtaining scores that are, beyond the 95th or 98th percentile? So we will administer the EFAR. And sometimes simply because we want to get a sense of a child's functioning. I think of all these students that are moving from one province to the other, we want to get a sense of, okay, how well were they doing in any given area? So we will administer the EFAR. Sometimes we will administer the EFAR to someone coming from out of country because they've been studying in a different school system. We want to know where would they fit compared to our population. In terms of the examiners, who are the people using the EFAR? The majority of people that are being trained are usually learning assistance teachers or learning support teachers. Oftentimes, they're resource room teachers. They could be district level teachers, counselors, support teachers, psychologists will often take the training. And I'd say anybody else that wants to take the training that has the basic skills to be able to administer the test, or that might have as part of their duties test evaluation or student evaluation. So these are the people administering the EFAR. So why do we do the EFAR after all? Well, oftentimes we want to find out what are the strengths and weaknesses of these students we're working with. We want to know how well they're doing when it comes to reading, writing, or math. Maybe we're also going through a psychoeducational assessment process and we need the achievement part. So oftentimes someone at the school level will be doing the EFAR, will be doing the achievement test, and later on the psychologist will complete the process. The EFAR and that kind of test, academic achievement tests, are at the key of a diagnosis when it comes to learning disabilities or learning disorder when we talk about diagnoses. So that would be kind of a reason to do the EFAR. Another one would also be to feed the IEP process. So sometimes you want to know, okay, what are the areas I should target? Well, by having the assessment and having a good sense of this child's functioning, we're better able to find goals and maybe to establish strategies. So that way, by doing the EFAR, we're able to have some elements of the IEP. So what is the EFAR exactly? So the EFAR is 3 different domains, reading, writing, and math, 10 different subtests, but also 17 different scores. So the first domain is reading. So you have letter word reading, reading fluency, reading comprehension, and pseudo words. You see the number of items here. And we'll discuss these further. This is really just an overview for you. We have writing. So again, fluency in writing, spelling, and written expression. You see the number of items, and you notice it changes from one subtest to the other. We have in math fluency, math operations or calculation, and then math reasoning. So all of these combined will look a little bit like this. Note that the pseudo-word subtest is not included in the calculation of the reading domain. So we only use 3 reading subtests, just like we use 3 writing subtests and 3 math subtests to calculate the domains. On top of these domains, there's also different aptitudes that we get to measure. So for example, fluency. You will have noted that there's a fluency subtest in all the domains. We also measure basic skills or application. And again, we have 4 different measures of application. Note that pseudo-word is not included in the calculation of that aptitude score. And finally, we have the higher order of these different domains, which is the reasoning component. And you see kind of the subtests that will comprise that area.